Today we're talking. We've been doing relationships. We started about a month ago with Mother's Day, a relationship with a mother. We've done the past and we've done the future, and now we're going to do the present. So I think I should start with a story right off. There was a guy named Bubba who went to his minister and he said, "Pastor, I need you to pray for my hearing." And so the pastor went over and put his hands on his ears, looked him in the face, held his head tightly, and he made a powerful prayer. And Bubba said, "Thank you, Pastor, but it's not today, it's on Tuesday." So, time, the present. Eckhart Tolle, as many of you have read this book, it's called The Power of Now, basically is saying that if you really want to have an awakening experience to your divine nature, to that aspect of you which is at one with everything and with the presence which we have commonly called God, if you want to have that experience, you will not do it in the future, nor was it something that could have happened in the past. It only happens here in the present. And in the present, in the now, is what he's talking about is taking yourself from identifying with the mind, which is thinking about the present and the past. It's making plans, making judgments, observing stuff, but making, not in a simple way, but evaluating everything. That mind has become what most of us, most of the time, identify with. And what Tim was saying in the prayer, he was basically saying, the part we're talking about when we're talking about praying and reminding people of their real nature in that prayer is we're saying there's something other than your circumstances, something other than your mind that is focused on the circumstances, and if you can slip out of that identification with the mind, you will have the awareness of that presence which is in you and is the presence. That will be your healing right there. Whether circumstances change or not, you will be healed. Eric Butterworth used to say, or somebody in the Unity movement says, the answer is never about in the outer world. When you pray, all you want to do is reach God. And this is a method, this is the way to reach what we have often called God, that presence which is everywhere, all the time, there. But we don't see it if we're in the state of judgment or identification with our ego. That's not what we see. What we see are the problems. We see differences. We see a sense of lack. We feel fear. We experience pain in that state. But when we move to this presence, then while that may be in the field, it's not what we're really identified with. We are now identified with something that is more primary, more fundamental to the nature of reality than the external circumstances we see here. And it's hard to believe if you're caught in the mind that that makes any sense at all, because the mind is pretty convinced it's got its hand on it. And when Eckhart Tolle is using the word mind, he's largely, you could substitute it for ego mind. You could say that instead. And so it's not like consciousness in its totality. It's consciousness focused, when he's saying mind, it's consciousness focused on thinking. It is the subject of thinking, not consciousness. Not all consciousness is thinking. Thinking is a bracket within it, but it isn't all of it. And when we move our awareness to recognize thinking from a higher place or a deeper place, then that thinking takes its place in the space that we call consciousness. Instead of being the only force, it becomes a force in there. Something you can use, you can plan, you can calculate, you can evaluate, you can weigh, you can do all those things. But if you cannot stop doing those things, you will be caught in the mind, according to Eckhart Tolle, and being caught in that mind, you cannot have this blissful experience of being the presence itself. So the present and the presence are completely connected. If we can be present in the moment, in this now moment, then we can experience that. And if we are someplace other than in the present, we're not going to have it. I want to read you what Meister Eckhart, 13th century spiritual teacher, said. Time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no greater obstacle to God than time. And Rumi, past and future will veil God from our sight, burn up both of them with fire. So I think what we have is, especially, I don't know if, do you even know what your default setting is? I mean, are you enough aware of what your default setting is? You know what mine is? I notice it when I'm walking in the woods, and there's absolutely nothing to do other than pay attention so you don't trip, right? You can observe the beauty, you can feel the breeze, there could be the occasional bug against your ear, but basically it's just a beautiful place to be, and I can be counting my money. Not that I could spend any at that time, not that I don't have money at this moment, but I'm counting money for when something in the future. That money, that day will never come. I mean, there will be a day when I'm older. There will be a day when maybe that money runs out. There may be any of those things that can happen. But what will not happen is I will not be there if I don't change that habit. I'll be in the next, And then what, right? The only moment that really matters is this moment, right now. The only matter that has any power in it, any presence, is this moment. The rest of them are mental constructs. Are you with me? Mental constructs. Sometimes useful, but not walking in the woods. Probably not driving your car. Probably not having dinner or looking in your loved one's eyes. The future, or the past, or maybe you're just having grievances of the past. Instead of you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about what happened in the past, and that's just absorbing your energy right now, because now instead of being able to deal with the present, you're concerned with what's happened in the past, and you build this story. If you know your ego loves to have a past. It has to have a past, and it has to be focused on the future, because in the present it is more or less not the thing. It doesn't have its power here. Where it has it is in its past and in its future, and its desire to control your energy. It keeps you in those two areas where it gains power, gains energy. But if you stay in the present, it is diminished, and it will resist. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, if you made anything that was alive, anything that is alive wants to remain alive. Have you noticed? I mean, even the smallest insect is really determined to do that. The greatest animal is determined to do that. Every thought form is determined to stay alive. It doesn't even have to be physical. It wants to be alive. And your ego is no different. And I don't really like talking trash about the ego. It's doing its best. Do you know what I mean? Just like rats are doing their best, gnats are doing their best, right? They're doing what they should be doing, and the ego's doing what it should be doing. So let's not get too harsh, but let's not live there. Let's recognize it has a place. As Tim said, it can help us function among other people, give us a personality, give us something that people can relate to. But if we wish to have that moment that extends indefinitely, we need to have the moment, the ability to come into this moment and stay there, in the present, and not go future or past. So how to do that? You know, mindfulness is a very popular thing these days. This is kind of a strange way of saying it, isn't it? Mindfulness, and what we're trying to do is get away from that. But essentially what you're doing is you're aware of what's happening internally, mostly. Both with your thoughts, you're aware, oh, I'm thinking, or yes, I'm feeling, or I'm sensing that in a physical way, something. You're aware, you keep your awareness there, not like on your money, on your past, on this. How is this going? How's this moment? How's this moment? And you keep bringing your mind back to that so it doesn't go someplace different. It doesn't go and become preoccupied with the past or future. And then the ego is diminished by that, and it may not be quiet forever, but it will quiet down while you are doing it. And you can begin to sense the timelessness about everything. And the presence. And you become the presence. You know? We could practice right now. You really don't have to close your eyes to meditate in this sense. You can keep your eyes open. And one way to do it that I found, if you're using your eyes as a method of awakening to the presence within you, is to really focus on your peripheral vision, which is a contradiction in terms. You cannot focus on peripheral vision, but you can hold your attention on the full screen and be present to everything that's here. I was watching a Zen teacher. He was talking about staying present, and he said, it's like driving. You can't focus on just one thing or you'll crash the car. You have to focus on everything that's happening. So if you focus on your peripheral vision, as we're sitting in this room together, you'll get that sense of, whoa, this is a big place, right? And I think of it this way, and it may not work for you this way, but it works for me this way. When I focus, I become smaller and poignant myself. I become a tighter physical being, that's my identity. And then as I spread out and focus out here, I begin to lose that I sense. I'm always hoping that somebody nods their head when I say this. I begin to lose the I sense and begin to just be. Not I am something, but just the being state here, the witness state. Anybody? Nobody? Wow, look, there's a head. Several times we've had a man come from England who talks about the headless state, and he basically says this: you have never been able to see your own face except in a reflection or in a picture. You can't see it. Is that true? That's true. Right? And so you could assume by direct experience, absolute direct experience, you don't have a head. You are just seeing. It's not I'm seeing. Seeing is happening. And the I that is seeing, because typically when we go I'm seeing, we start to take ownership, put it in the egoic category. Right? And when you're just seeing, you're just the presence seeing. I wish I could make this more clear, but I've not ever been able to convince a whole group of people. Occasionally one person will go, yeah, I think I get it. But practice this, try this, try this. I taught myself before I'd ever heard of anybody doing this, walking in the woods and just spreading out like this. And suddenly you are not moving. The rest of the world is moving toward you because it's moving inside the presence. And you're not the doer. You're a witness of it. And so you can do it while you're driving as well. You can still manage a car in doing this. So I recommend it. I'll give you a second one, something that really worked for me one time. I was talking with Catherine Ingram, who's a a Buddhist teacher. And I think we were having coffee one-on-one, sitting there, and I was telling her I was feeling a little bit depressed, and she said, "Why don't you try this? What is the limit of this moment?" And I promise you, within 5 seconds, my depression was gone. And answer the question, what is the limit of this moment? And let your mind go to the periphery and expand beyond where it normally sits. What is the limit of this moment? And see if it doesn't bring you out of the tight identification with your past, present, or thoughts. Right? In this moment, what is the limit of this moment? I'm going to hold this for as long as this moment lasts. If we will do these little exercises where we pay attention to our thoughts or pay attention to the sensations in our body so that we become the witness of that, we begin to stop identifying with the ego and begin to identify with something other than thinking, which is a part of the big spread of consciousness. Consciousness has within it thinking, but consciousness is so much more. And you are that consciousness. And when we do this, we still that yada, yada, yada that's going on in us, and we come to hear or sense or feel the presence that we are. The non-physical, non-defined sense of I, and we begin to merge with that which is, or all that is. And that becomes our merging with the one presence. And we say it here on Sunday every time. There's only one presence, well, we used to say it, there's only one presence and one power in my life and in the universe, God the good omnipotent. But it doesn't mean that, like in my life, there's only one presence and one, because I'm a believer and I'm a person. No, it's a bigger truth than that. It doesn't mean I have only one presence because I've been somehow powerfully been able to exclude all other thoughts. No, we are part of that presence, and there is in fact only one presence of which we can experience when we're in the present. So I'm making a case for the present. Now, of course, we have to live a life, and we have to plan, and we have to pay bills, we have to take care of the past, and we have all that to do. But it takes its place inside your whole life. It is not your whole life. You are not those things. We are not our thoughts. We are not our plans, and we're not our past. What are the limits of this moment right now? Where does your present moment end? How far is your present moment? Does it just get beyond your skin, or does it go further than that? Is the present moment bigger than that? Is it as far as the street out there? What are the limits of your present moment? Is it in this moment too? It is in the next moment? And if you were living in this moment, when you get that glimpse of what are the limits, that this present moment could be all that as far as you see, both forward, backwards, up and down, in this moment, would you tell your story like it was all that bloody important? Would you spend your time griping about what's happening over there or back there? If you were in this present moment and you saw somebody, would you see them fresh? Like, who are you? Would you not be fascinated by the very world you live in rather than to want to be in another world? Would you not be afraid of nothing? Your future, your diagnosis, your lack of diagnosis, your want for a diagnosis, it doesn't matter. Would you just be here? And being here, would not that be sweet? Sufficient? And at some point, would you not begin to feel, if you examine the present moment, that you are that which you were looking for all along? Thinking, oh, I've got to find God. When God is residing in this moment as your consciousness, not just your thinking, but as your consciousness. It is here in this moment. So for lack of knowing that, we have believed that we are egos and that all this stuff matters, all the past, all the future, oh my God, how I'm feeling. I'm completely identified with it rather than noticing I'm feeling this way. Having thoughts and thinking I am those thoughts. Having a name and thinking that's who you are. Having a profession and claiming it as your identity. Of course we've done that. But there is another one. There's another deeper truth where you don't tell your story. You don't make your story who you are. You have a story, of course. And you can tell it if you need to. But how many of us tell that story like it's the truth? You've taken all that's happened to you, condensed it down into maybe 300 words, and declared it as the truth. I'm prone to cussing, and I can tell you that sounds very much like BS to me. You cannot take your whole life, all that you missed, that you've forgotten, all that you have thought you knew about yourself, and condense it into a story you can tell someone. It's not the truth. And neither is your future what you can imagine. That's not even close. You ever guessed right? Maybe you've guessed right a few times, but it's a mystery what the future is. But this present moment is different. When you're in it, it's magic. It's peace. It's love being expressed. It is this sense of completeness that doesn't need anything else. This is where we're headed, or where we can always already be if we will but practice. Watch your thoughts. Watch your emotions. Watch your body motion. Feel what you're feeling and know you're feeling it. You are not that. You're the one that's aware of that. This is the trick. Let us pray. In this moment, what are you thinking? Those are not you, those are your thoughts. In this moment, what are you feeling? Those are not you either. And what is that story you tell about yourself? Is that really you? So let's ask the question another way. What is the limit of your consciousness? And as your awareness expands, perhaps we can be clear about who we really are. Not the story, not the emotions, not the thoughts, but this awareness. What are the limits of this awareness? And so it is.
I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.